Welcome to A Lawyer's Guide to the Galaxy, a podcast about geek culture by lawyers with your hosts, Ben Siders and Kirk Damon.
And welcome back to A Lawyer's Guide to the Galaxy, the podcast that asks interesting questions that don't have any answers, with your host, Ben Siders, that's me, and the other guy is Kirk Damon. It has been a hot minute since we've given you any content, folks, and we are sorry about that. We've had a lot of complicating factors over the last 6 to 8 weeks that have just made it difficult. One of which is about 3 weeks ago, I was tested positive for COVID-19, after which my wife and 2 of my kids were. So we had a bout of COVID running through the house and kind of took the wind out of my sails there for a couple of weeks. But as is hopefully evident from my cheery tone today, I am recovered and doing better and feeling all right. I had what they would consider a mild case, was never under any real risk of having to be hospitalized or anything like that, but it was miserable. So if you can avoid it, don't get it. In the meantime, Kirk has recorded some content. I've been meaning to record some. I just haven't been able to get to it, but we want to get something out for you. So what I'm going to do is give you Kirk's something he recorded a long time ago that I've been meaning to match up with. So he watched the Picard series and provided his thoughts, and I was then going to independently watch it, record my thoughts, put them together, and compare. But I just have not gotten to it yet, and it's been a while. So I'm going to go ahead and give you Kirk's. I'm not actually going to listen to it, so once I cut off my recording here, I'm going to drop in Kirk's content, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a little outro, and then we're going to be done. But I'm not going to listen to it because I don't want to be influenced by Kirk's opinions. Beyond that, we have a lot to talk about, actually. There is a lot going on in IP world. Today, as I'm recording this, is November 15th. We have a presidential transition coming up, which often, but not always, means a transition of leadership at the patent office. So that's something that we'd like to probably cover. And then there's a lot going on with copyright, video games. There's just a ton. And Kirk and I both want to get on and talk about some of those things. So we are trying to come up with a plan for what to do, because the pandemic, at least where we are, is not going away. It's getting worse, not better. And the odds of us being able to get together are slim. So we're going to try to get some time on the books for both of us to get together, come up with an outline, and get you some more conventional episodes like you're used to. We're probably going to not be able to go on a weekly basis like we wanted to at the outset of the year. That's just not realistic at this point. But we would like to try to get back on some kind of schedule, maybe every 2 weeks or something like that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to pull that off and get something to you a little more regularly. Maybe not until after the holidays. So fortunately, our 2020 plans were dashed pretty early on. So at any rate, here are Kirk's thoughts on the Picard TV series, and hopefully I will be able to follow up with my own thoughts separately at some point in the future, along with getting back to some more law episodes. We have had a number of requests for getting back to that kind of content, so I know a lot of you out there tune in for that and enjoy it. So without further ado, here's Kirk.
Okay, I am back for another Edamame episode. Doing this one, we've still got a few in the hopper to get out, so this will probably be down the road, but one never knows. We are changing release order. As usual, I'm outside doing this one. So again, you may get some nature noise. We're starting to get some cicadas out here, so you never know quite what you're going to hear, and definitely the construction has gotten louder, so who knows what we'll hear. But I wanted to record this one because of what I have just gotten to watch. So we actually, as part of sort of, I guess our quarantine TV watching, we've been watching all sorts of crazy things, but we decided to get CBS All Access, and I have watched the entire first season of Star Trek Picard. So I'm going to talk about Star Trek Picard. This is obviously going to have a lot of spoilers in it, so if you have not watched Star Trek Picard and don't want the spoilers, stop now. But I'm going to go ahead and do this because I wanted to talk about it. And for those of you who may not have seen the show, I will warn you, this is a show that spoilers can spoil. I'm not a person that really minds getting spoilers and sort of finding out about, sort of what happens in shows ahead of time. But this is one that I think just the nature of the show, you really do kind of want to not know what's going on. So anyway, hopefully that's enough disclaimers. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. So like I said, we decided to get CBS All Access. A lot of it was because my wife wanted to see Picard. We have seen season 1, so I made it all the way through season 1, which is all that they've released. We were going to watch it with the kids. We watched episode 1 with the kids, and they discovered they had absolutely no idea what was going on. My kids have not seen a lot of Star Trek. They've seen occasional episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, but they really didn't understand it. And Picard is clearly a show designed for fans of the series. There's a lot that you need to sort of, be able to just quickly process. They do a pretty good job of explaining what's going on, but a lot of the pieces of it, a lot of what's going on, you kind of just have to know. One of the things is, and Picard definitely does it, there's a lot of fan service cameos. At the same time, they're valuable. They're important as to, what you sort of need to get the plot to continue. What I also thought was interesting, having watched Picard, is we happened to watch the episode 1 of The Best of Both Worlds, part 1 of The Best of Both Worlds, when we were doing sort of our hard quarantine. It just happened to be on TV and we left it on. So what was interesting about that is the fact that obviously flashes forward into the future and some things that they kept. So I really appreciate the fact that Picard owns a vineyard. I think that was kind of neat. Although his aged self looks a lot different than he does in conjunction with his artificially aged self in The Next Generation. But a few of my comments sort of about Picard, the first thing about it is I really kind of loved the plot line. I thought the concept of it was really cool. The idea of basically exploring humanity's interaction with artificial intelligence and, with synthetics around the question of data. And sort of what does it mean? What did data mean? What was data as a construct, as a human, for sort of lack of a better way of putting it? And what did he mean for the show? And I thought they did a really good job with that. I think they did a great job of sort of having Data be a good character. I mean, I think also it doesn't hurt that Patrick Stewart is an incredible actor, as is Brent Spiner. And it really kind of shows. And a couple of times as they do some really good jobs, I think, in the way the show presents them. A few of my basic takes about it. Again, I really liked the plot. I really liked exploring the Borg. I liked exploring the concept of what does it mean to be XP, the X-Borgs. To sort of get their life back, and what does that mean? And the fact that, it's difficult. It's a very difficult thing for them to reckon with. I also thought it was very intriguing the way it reintroduced the Romulans as a real sort of negative enemy in conjunction with it. It's Star Trek's been, for lack of a better term, assimilating its enemies for a long time. Starfleet, obviously now has Klingons in it. Did in The Next Generation. We kind of had the Romulans start to get, sort of assimilated into the Federation. I think it worked really well to sort of bring back the idea that maybe this was, really a subterfuge. The great thing about the Romulans is the fact that, they're a mystery inside Enigma, wrapped inside a spy network, cloaked by assassins. And they did a really good job of making the Romulans that way. That this was a very much a subterfuge, a long game play, very long game play, that they were now playing out. My favorite parts of it definitely, and I just have to admit, I really enjoyed the cameos of 7 of 9. I thought it was great that they did it. And again, I really liked the way they did the Borg and the way they introduced the Borg. So one of the things I still remember, I was kind of about, is one of my sort of favorite things in conjunction with Star Trek The Next Generation. I think like many Star Trek The Next Generation fans, so I watched Star Trek The Next Generation primarily in college and into law school. And I really enjoyed Star Trek The Next Generation. We used to have viewing parties for it when I was in college, go watch it. I also really loved Babylon 5, which was out at the same time. I actually like Babylon 5 better. But Next Generation, in some sense, is more real Star Trek than Star Trek. And I think that's true of a lot of Star Trek fans. The original cast was great, but the show's so dated. Whereas The Next Generation, I think, is a little more timeless. It definitely holds on a little bit better. But I think like many Star Trek fans, I absolutely loved the Borg. They were one of the best enemies. And I always comment about it as one of the most amazing things I still remember from sort of Star Trek lore was seeing for the first time, and it probably was in a theater, the trailer for First Contact. And it shows the trailer, and I still remember part of the trailer. They're showing the various, things of the Borg, various things happening in conjunction with the Borg, and then it just popped up, the words resistance, then it showed some more clips, then, is, and then some more clips, and then futile. And I think that was the thing, that like the Borg were just such a great enemy. As I was commenting about it, the reason they were so good is because they weren't malicious in any way. They were just completely alien. And they were alien in a way that we found very offensive. The idea of this sort of lack of individuality, this lack of control, and I loved the way that they portrayed them originally. I actually have a Star Trek First Contact shirt that has the Resistance is futile on the back of it. Because I always loved that. And again, I remember seeing that trailer and just how excited I was when I first saw that trailer of just, this is going to be so cool. I think the movie was a bit of a disappointment, actually. It was a neat concept. It's classic Star Trek. Let's mess with the space-time continuum. But, I did really enjoy it. So I really appreciated Picard's investigation into, what are the Borg. I don't think we've gotten there yet. I think we're headed towards an origin story of the Borg. I think we're going to get much more of, who they are, where they are. We're going to get a good history on sort of, humankinds, and I think, Romulan kinds as well, interaction with synthetics and exactly what that means, and stuff along those lines. So I would definitely recommend anybody watch Picard, again, that has it. You have to kind of be into the Borg. It's one of those things, again, there are scenes in it that sent shivers down my spine, to use, again, as spoilers. One of those scenes that I just loved is when 7 of 9 takes command of the cube, and immediately you get the, we are Borg, from the multifaceted voice of her now commanding all of the Borg. And, just sort of the chilling of what that is and how scary that is, to sort of see this thing coming back to life. So, anyway, that's a lot of what I had with it. My one complaint with the Star Trek Picard, I really felt like it ended suddenly. And I had the same comment with my wife. It sounded like they just did a great job of sort of, introducing, setting up where this was going to go, what these potential issues with it were, the various player characters, what we're going to have. And then sort of they arrive at, the AI planet. Whatever you want to call it, Haven, whatever, again, sort of you want to call it with it. And then sort of everything spiraled out of control very, very fast, and then sort of got back into control very, very fast. And it seemed almost like plot devices, like they needed to advance it as, we've got this plot device that we can suddenly bring in advanced AI from beyond. We just have to build a quick antenna, so that we can do it. And then, hey, the Romulans are going to take over the world. Oh, don't worry, the Federation's actually heard the distress call, and as opposed to, every other time that they've sort of faked this and not been sure what to think of it, we've got this powerful thing featuring, a second cameo by Will Riker. And again, so it's one of those where my real complaint about it is I really thought the season ended way too suddenly. I think they could have gone readily into the idea of ending the season almost with them starting the quest, for looking for her homeworld, looking for the AI planet, and the idea that they sort of needed to track this down. And it going for literally, an entire second season of them trying to get there. I just really felt like they could explore it much more. I kind of wonder if it was because they felt like they needed to kind of wrap up some of the plot points to end season 1, if there may have been something in conjunction with the filming, in conjunction with the production schedule that said, hey, they really needed to end season 1 and make sure that they give it some closure, where they hadn't necessarily intended to do that. I don't know. I don't know enough about sort of the production of it, but I did really enjoy it. The other thing I thought was really good about it, and I think it's interesting, and maybe that's the purpose of this episode, is the relationship with Star Trek and all science fictions with synthetic characters, and the idea of we have artificial intelligence. And obviously this is something which is becoming more and more prevalent in real world today, the idea that we have computers that are making decisions, computers that can do things. But what I think is interesting about it is science fiction always tends to treat artificial intelligence against synthetics. I like the term synthetic as to what they use it, and it's used in a number of science fiction series the same way, which is they're both sort of simultaneously objects of awe and objects of fear. And I assume that just sort of echoes, and I think it does echo, humanity's take of them. But what I also think is about them is how often they are, I guess the sort of best way to put it is not aware of what they are. And I find that to be a really interesting thing. The examples of like where I take it from is Blade Runner. Obviously, that's the sort of core of Blade Runner, that, does a synthetic even know it's a synthetic? And, that being the sort of central question of it. But I think even when you get into Alien and Aliens, where, the synthetics are very, very aware of what they are, at the same time, they feel like they sort of have a humanity, and they're not necessarily synthetic. It's one of those that I think is well played, actually, in the Alien franchise, where, Alien has it, you have the betrayal that happens, and, it kind of, influences Sigourney Weaver's character, Ripley. And in Aliens, when Ripley finds out, Bishop is synthetic, it kind of freaks her out. And I love the interaction with, she had a bad interaction with the last synthetic she worked with, and Bishop's response is, "Oh, they had poor programming. I'm much better." And so, I kind of like that sort of play of the idea that, like, he's very, very aware of what he is, yet at the same time, he's sort of not aware of what he is. And I think that this is the first time Star Trek has really played with that. And I really like the fact that they were playing around with the idea of sort of the Borg versus the synthetics, and sort of what are the Borg? What does it mean to be Borg? And things like that. The other one with it, and I remember somebody telling me this years ago, and I always thought it was true. When they made Jean-Luc Picard into Locutus, and he was a Borg for a while, the fact that a lot of fans always wanted him to be tormented by it more. I always thought that was interesting. One of the people always said, they kind of wished he had a scar. On his face from it happening, sort of like, 7 of 9 obviously does, with the sort of, connection points and stuff like that. And they play out with the XBs. Now he obviously wasn't Borg long enough, and, they played around with the thing he still has some of the microbes, the nanotechnology, sort of stuff like that is not completely out of his system. But the idea that he was just sort of, actively tormented by it, and it's something he couldn't avoid. He sort of had to see. And it's something that I think they did well in Picard, with the fact that, hey, this is killing him. And, it again, I think it's well played in the idea of doing that. Again, I think they end that plot point way too suddenly as to where they're going with it and, what it means. So it's one of those where, I guess in take, and I kind of rambled here a little bit about it, I really thought Picard was an incredibly valuable addition to the Star Trek series. If nothing else, watch it, because Patrick Stewart's an amazing actor. If you haven't seen him, my wife has been fortunate enough to see him in a one-man stage show, which she still considers to be one of the best stage shows she's ever seen. But it's one of those things where, he is just an amazing actor, and he does, it's very clear, like, he had a lot of input, I think, into what this show was and what he wanted his character to be. And it's just a very, very well done, very entertaining show. A few things to keep in mind: it's much more violent than I think we're used to Star Trek being. Maybe not the really recent Star Trek, but definitely for next generation type Star Trek, it is much more violent than we're used to. And it's violent in some pretty graphic ways a couple of times. We have some people dying by swords and blades, as opposed to, just phasing out when they get, zapped with a phaser. The other thing about it is it's very dark, at least when it starts off. It is not a happy story. It is a really ugly story when it starts. And I'm not sure it gets much happier during the course of it. Now, I'd say it really has a happy ending. But, it's a very dark story. So again, it's one I would be careful watching with your kids right off the bat. We kind of had the surprise with that. And again, we watched the first episode. I think we watched the first episode, maybe even the first episode in a bit, and decided that we were just going to finish it on our own, and the kids were not going to finish it. So anyway, that was sort of my take of it. I really think it was a very interesting show. Again, sort of one of my more geeky episodes. Not really tying it into law, but I wanted to talk about it just because I had a chance to see it. I know some people had seen it, and it was also just cool to see Star Trek again. It's been a long time since I've really seen Star Trek. I watched, I can't remember which movie it is, the most recent of the sort of next generation era movies, a few months ago, and enjoyed that. But it was one of those things where, this I felt was really cool. They also ended up, it played right into this beginning of Discovery, and I have to admit, Discovery really intrigues me. I'm just not sure I can stand watching any more TV. So we'll see whether or not we keep CBS All Access and whether or not we keep Discovery, but we'll see where that goes. So anyway, this was just a quick Edamame episode. I doubt Ben's going to have any follow-up on this, because I don't think he's seen the show, and he probably doesn't even want to listen to this. So anyway, I could, make fun of him now, but I'm not going to. So anyway, hope you guys are all staying safe. Everything's still going good, and hope you enjoyed the episode.
All right, so there you go, folks. Sorry again for the lack of content and consistently lately. We were just, it's 2020 and it's a different kind of world right now. So we're all doing the best we can, and I hope all of you are healthy and safe, getting through this, taking care of yourselves, and just hanging in there. So hopefully, like I said, we'll have content coming to you a little more regularly, and maybe we'll get Kirk and I back on the horn again together soon. So that's all for today. We'll see you next time. Lauren, play us out.
The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by Lewis Rice LLC, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer. This podcast was produced and recorded in St. Louis, Missouri.